Hey guys, this is Kevin Smith Jr., your host for the Container Happy Hour. Grab a drink, join us every 2 weeks, and we'll talk containers and future of the market. Hey buddy, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We've got the honor of my good friend, Mr. Keith Hotston, coming from us from over the pond. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers. Good to see you, finally.
You too, buddy.
That's a K for Keith, by the way. You'll have to get your own one.
That's not for me?
Not yet.
Okay. So first, let me just do the formalities. By title, you're the Executive Director of Blue Sky Intermodal, right?
Correct, yeah.
And we'll hit on that a little bit. But for the fun stuff, tell me why we're doing gin and tonics today.
Yeah, gin and tonic. I mean, it's become a real trendy drink. I don't know if it's the same out there in the US, but I've been drinking gin and tonic for, well, as long as I can remember. While all my mates were drinking beers, I kind of moved on to the gin and tonic. And, years ago, you only really have one or two varieties. Nowadays, I mean, I don't know if you've seen, there's all sorts of flavors out there, but I prefer to stick to the more traditional types. I just find it a really refreshing drink. And if it's made properly, you're supposed to put a load of ice in the glass. The premise being that if you put lots of ice in there, the ice stays as ice, makes the glass nice and cold. Then you pour in your gin, then you squeeze in a bit of lime or whatever kind of garnish you want to put in there. And then you pour in your tonic nice and gently, and you've got a nice fizzy drink. It's perfect. It's good. And it's one of those few drinks that I find is pure enough for me that I can actually get up and function the following morning.
Oh, well, we'll put that part to the test.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends how many you drink, because I've been with you when you've been drinking tequilas, and I'm like, no, I couldn't keep up with that. No way.
And I did function the next day. I promise.
I know you did. Have you done one of these with somebody who drinks tequila yet?
No, I don't think anyone's picked tequila yet. No,
right.
That'll be fun though. Yeah, I want someone to go head to head on that, right?
I was going to say, you should choose the drink.
Well, part of the novelty is the guest, but I'll be honest, I don't drink a lot of gin. So I had to go get some gin when you told me that was your pick. So I got some Bombay dry gin.
Right.
So
what's interesting about that, Kev?
It's good though.
It's good. And what's interesting about that one is that's made in the UK. And about half an hour from where I live, there's the distillery there. So you can do like a tour. And I did that a few years ago, and they've got their own botanical gardens there. And they take you through all the ingredients and the distillery process. And every single drop of Bombay Sapphire around the world is made from that same place. And one of the things that I discovered, which I never knew, I know that in the US, cinnamon is a real strong ingredient in a lot of, especially sweet products. Right. And I don't like cinnamon. But what I didn't realize until I went that day to this gin distillery is that it's just a smell. If you pinch your nose and dip your finger in powdered cinnamon and taste it, it tastes of nothing. It's just a smell.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
I think that's it. It's over, right?
Yeah. Well, that's all I'm going to learn today. So we'll wrap up from here.
You're going to have to try that now.
No, I am. And realize everyone that watches this is going to be doing that at home. So, so thank you for that. But
you're welcome.
Speaking of the Bombay production, you're in the UK right now, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked about doing this show in person for a long time. Yes. And obviously the pandemic kind of blew that. So thank you for doing it remotely. But the fun part is you're the first guest from the UK.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, I can't really do much to prove to you that I'm in the UK, but I don't know if you can see a little bit of the window there. It's raining outside. So, I mean, that says it all, really.
Oh, naturally. Yeah. Or you're just in Seattle and fooling us, but that's okay.
No, well, that's good. I'm honored to be the first British guest, and I hope that my dry British sense of humor is appreciated by all.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. No, we had Andy Withers, a fellow Brit, but we did it in the U.S. So you get to be a Brit and filmed across the pond. So that's a double whammy, right?
Good.
So I have to ask you about this, and I know we're bouncing around, but there's a gold record over your shoulder.
There is.
Pretty sure there's a connection because I heard from a mutual friend that your son has had some success in music production. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, he has, and it was quite recent. About 2 years ago, he decided to get into music production when he turned 18, and he was going to go to university, but he took a gap year and set up a production studio. And it's all, it's not like it was in the old days where you'd have like a 5-piece band. It's all done on a Mac, really. And he works very much in the R&B sector. And he made this song with a guy called Simba last year. And it went a bit crazy on TikTok when it got released. People started doing this dance to it. And then, in some ways, lockdown helped him because kids had nothing better to do than to do TikTok dances. So This thing goes viral on TikTok. And then the next thing we know, it's done 1 million and now over 100 million streams on Spotify. It got into our charts here. It hit gold. It's just hit platinum. It just actually got released in America with a famous rapper there called Lil Tecca. So yeah, and so things are really starting to happen for my son, which is great because, depending on where the container industry takes us in the next few years, I'm hoping he's going to be my backup. I'll go work for him instead.
A natural segue, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This career to that.
Yeah.
So do you think you're going to be like the talent? Are you going to be involved in any of these videos, or you're just going to sit back and help manage the program?
I'll look after his money.
Okay.
That's what parents do. No, I mean I had my share. I mean, you can see I've got the jukebox in the background. We're music lovers in this family, and donkeys years ago when I was in my 20s, I had a short career in radio as well. So it's very much in our blood that we love this sort of thing. But he gets to live the dream, and I'm really happy for him. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, congratulations to all of you guys. That's amazing.
Thanks.
What's the actual name of the song? So we'll kind of put it on the screen.
Yeah,
here.
So the name of the song is Rover. Okay. The artist is Simba, that's S1MBA. And my son, who's the producer, so basically he did everything in terms of the composition and the music on that song. The only thing that wasn't him was the vocals. And his company is called Relight Productions. Relight is actually his Christian name spelt backwards. His name is Tyler. That's about as original as he could get. But you know what? That's what it is. It's Relight Productions. He's going to stick with that, and hopefully it's going to go places.
That's great. That's catchy, though. I think that could work.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
That's pretty amazing. I don't think we can talk about anything that's that cool.
No, I mean, to move from that into containers, I'm intrigued to know how you're going to do it.
You did. You took care of the segue for me. You're probably the best guest possible. So with that in mind, why don't you go ahead and do an elevator pitch for Blue Sky? Let us know a little bit about you guys, pretend I don't know that. And then maybe transition into your direct role and involvement. Sure.
Well, I mean, so Blue Sky is one of the few container leasing companies that are out there that is a privately owned, very much family-based kind of business, even though we're not a family in relation. A lot of us been working together for a long time. We come from some of the bigger leasing companies over the decades. And our core product for many, many years, and still is, leasing. It's container leasing to the shipping lines, much in the way that the big leasing companies do. We're in the sort of small to medium size there. But we've also established, because of the experience that we've got within the team and the technology that we've developed to run our business, we've established ourselves in various other areas of this sector. which, have appealed to us for many years. And as you know, from the relationship we have, one of those areas is in the trading side of the business. And each leg that we've got to what we do actually complements one another, because we've got those relationships with manufacturers, with shipping lines, and various other partners, if you like, in this sector. So it enables us to be able to utilize those relationships to do different things within the industry. And, if it's one-way moving containers to certain locations, or like we do on a regular basis, building containers in China under our contracts, moving them to locations where you guys need them in the US. And that's become a real core part of our business. And it seems to be working well. It's a big business. There's a lot of capacity and scope out there. And we feel that we have a chance to tap into that market a bit more, and we're looking at expanding that. And of course, we've been expanding the people that we've got in the US as well. We've got enough people there to help accommodate those requirements, and that's a big part of the future of our business. Whilst at the same time, we are still very focused on that core leasing sector, because that's really where a lot of us came from in the old days.
Sure. How many boxes are in the lease fleet for Blue Sky?
So in the lease fleet today, we've got around about 350,000 TEU. And you've seen over the last couple of years that buying containers, first of all, it got a little bit, I wouldn't say tricky, but there was a lot of apprehension a couple of years ago when the waterborne paint application came into play, because there was a lot of nervousness about that. So there were a few players in the market like us that kind of stepped back a little bit. So that slowed us down in terms of our growth. 2020, nobody predicted or even built a pandemic into their business plan. So that's been a bit of an uncertainty to us all. But interestingly, it's been pretty amazing to see how this industry has navigated through this crisis. I've been very, very impressed, I have to say.
I would agree with that. I've been very surprised. And when I talk to friends outside of our business, we talk to our industry colleagues all the time, right? And we kind of get into that mindset. But when you visit with friends outside the business and you realize how many businesses have folded or paused or completely had to change scope, it's a really dramatic difference to what we've seen in our sector, right?
It is. And, at the start of this, Kevin, we were all wondering how it was going to unfold. We all had ideas of how long this might take. Nobody could obviously put a timeline on it. But the way I think we as leasing companies, certainly in my opinion, we've got to give a lot of credit to the shipping lines and the way they've handled this, because they have managed their capacities and they've maintained their rates, and they've done all they needed to do to keep themselves protected and safe in this. And as a result of that, leasing companies, we depend on those shipping lines. It's helped us as well.
Sure.
And I think that's a real key factor to how we so far have survived this without too many major crises. The jury is still out as to how long this is going to take, whether there's going to be second waves, or how we get through the winter seasons. But for now, we're very grateful for the way it's been handled. And literally in the last, I would say, so where are we now? We're in August. I would say in the last month to 6 weeks, we've seen huge increase in movement. We've seen we've seen container manufacturing has opened up again. They've opened in August. They're opening up some more hours in their shifts. We've seen a lot of the inventory in China has now moved out. Depot stocks have gone down dramatically, and there's demand out there. And the forecast at the moment is pretty good. And the shipping lines, because they've obviously benefited from reduced bunker costs, but also the way that they've blanked their sailings, some of them are reporting some pretty decent results as well. So it's all at the moment very positive. I wouldn't like to sit here and say, we're over it, because there's a much longer term effect of this that nobody can possibly predict. And whatever spike we're seeing now in the economy, that's not going to be long-lived, but it's encouraging to see how there's been a bit of recovery there.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. There's still so much we can't plan and forecast for, but what we are seeing is tremendous, and we're all, I think, very optimistic and happy to see it, certainly.
Are you seeing the same in your business?
Yeah, we get to see a little bit different side of it than you, obviously, and we're counter cyclical to you, right? If your utilization is through the roof and you guys are thrilled, we're empty. And so that's always that sweet spot where we both need kind of a happy midpoint. But we're seeing a lot of activity. We're seeing a lot of idle stock being consumed and heading out, which is good for the overall market and overall economy. So even when we as a depot see it going out, we still view that as an overall positive for the economy.
Sure.
And so we've really seen that happening. We've seen a lot of really nice customization work happen over the pandemic, which kind of surprised us, to be honest, that people were willing to invest, their capital in some custom projects, some container modifications.
Right,
so we've done quite a bit of that. And then we've seen new trading, which, is a key part of your growth plan, right? We've seen the new trading be very, very steady. And I think the only blip we see with the new trading is now finding the right pricing and finding the right production cycle now that the factories are getting these large orders again, right?
Sure. Yeah.
They're not as keen on looking at our couple thousand pieces when they have a booking for a couple 100,000, right?
Yeah, and I think that's it's a really, really interesting point, because we've seen this behavior in the past. When the big leasing orders aren't in there, or the big shipping line orders aren't in there, the factories are hungry for business and obviously far more willing to squeeze that production in. But who can blame them if they've got some big orders in there that are going to be more fruitful for them? Then the smaller orders have to go at the back of the queue. And that's, along with other challenges that we're going to see in our industry over the coming years, that is going to be one of them. But I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen so many changes in this industry. Yet we still come out of it and find a way to continue to do the business that we need to do. It's just sometimes a bit different, that's all.
Sure. We have to be pretty flexible. I always try to tell people it's a slow moving beast, what we do, right? I mean, it's this manual creature that just kind of like blobs along. But at the same time, we can't be stuck in our ways. We have to constantly be looking at technology and ways to be pliable and change how we do it. And that maybe is one of the fun things about what we do. But
sure.
You mentioned the expansion into the U.S. market even further, and the team and all that kind of stuff. Do you want to talk about the team that you have here?
Yeah, sure. So we've got Chantel, who's located in Texas. She's been working for us the longest and really started to help us with those operations. When Blue Sky started back in 2003, started up really with predominantly trading. But the appetite was always to get into leasing. And so from 2004 right the way through to 2018-19, we built up that leasing portfolio to what it is today. And the great thing about starting up a leasing company is you have this fantastic honeymoon period where the majority of leases nowadays are term leases. So it's great because you build the containers, you put them on hire, and you sit back for 5 years until they come back. And some are even on 8-year leases. But then suddenly when they start to trickle in, which was, what we had sort of 5, 6, 7 years into the business, you have to have that depot network there. You have to have redeployment programs. You have to have the systems. And most importantly, no matter what systems you've got, you need people. You need good people. So, we hired Chantal to help us set up the US part of what we do. And then we've got Carlos, who's down in Miami. He looks after most of our container sales there. He's now recently got an assistant who's working with him. She's really good. Her name is Uni. And Uni joined us just at the start of the pandemic. So suddenly she's working in this nice office, and then next thing she's working from home. So it's been really tricky. But again, you know, aren't we lucky that we're in an age where we've got technology like this, where you can still communicate, everyone can get access to the systems. So we've been able to work through all of that. And we have our M&R guy, who is one of my old mates from my Kronos days. His name is Colin Jacobs, and he looks after our M&R. He's out in the West Coast. And, you know, we've got small coverage in terms of headcount, but we've got enough coverage there for the size of the business that we're doing. But we enjoy the American market, and we know that there's a lot more there for us to enjoy. So we will look to expand that over the coming years, definitely.
Absolutely. And what about you personally? I mean, you kind of quickly threw in there that you had some time on the radio. And then I think we positioned past that. So how did you go from that phase, whenever that was, to the container leasing industry?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Well, it kind of overlapped a bit, and so much like my son with his passion for music, I started doing some voluntary radio work back in the 80s when I was in my teens, and. At that point, or shortly after, I needed a job. You know, there wasn't any money to be had in radio, especially when you're volunteering. And so I started working for this company called Shelfstar, which is a container leasing company that goes all the way back to the 80s and 90s. That was where I learned everything, Kevin, good and bad. You know, it's one of those jobs where they put you in and they say, right, you're the ops guy, and then tomorrow you're the M&R guy. Oh, we want you to do a bit of sales. And by the way, we need you to run our billing. So you've got to learn the systems. So it was brilliant from an educational perspective. But back in those days, in the early 90s, I still had an appetite to work on the radio. And I actually landed a couple of fairly decent gigs. But then I had an opportunity with Kronos that came up, and, you know, I had a girlfriend at the time, and we wanted to get a place together. And if I had to weigh this up, and I had this opportunity to go and chase this broadcasting career, or I could have this sort of fairly steady 9 to 5 that was looking pretty good, and settle down with the girlfriend, and who's now my wife. And so I decided to take
that story could have gone really badly.
It could have gone. It could have gone. But yeah. Let's not talk about my other girlfriend. No, that's a joke. Now that's the dark sense of humor coming out again. But no, I mean, you know, it's an interesting one, because, you know, people sometimes say, oh, wow, do you have regrets? And honestly, I don't. I mean, I've loved working in this industry. If my kids' friends ask, what do you do? They switch off in a heartbeat. You know, when somebody says to me, what do you do? And you say the word container, they're gone. So, you know, I should just tell them I'm either a brain surgeon or a radio DJ or something. I should just make it up. It'd be more interesting. But, you know, for those of us who are working in this industry, it makes you tick. And what I've seen that's really interesting is people that I met sort of 25 years ago in this industry, they're still there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're
some of them don't have any hair anymore, and some of them have gone grey like me.
Right. But they're stuck for life.
Exactly. Once you're in, you're in. It's just one of those businesses.
And fast forward, you know, through that amazing transition, and then you're with Blue Sky. And tell me a little bit about your direct role with Blue Sky, because from our involvement together through the years, you really do wear a lot of hats. And you have a diverse background that lets you speak intelligently to multiple fields inside the sector, which is impressive. So I don't think of you as someone that's, hey, he does this at Blue Sky. Right.
Well, that's a huge compliment. And before I spoil it, I think we should just end this there.
Okay, that's it.
No, so
when we edit this down, we're going to edit it to about 3 minutes, and it's going to be the cinnamon and that compliment. That's it.
Excellent. That's great. That suits me fine.
Okay.
Well, to answer the question without sort of taking it too far, I mean, I guess 30 years in any industry, you're going to build up a fair bit of knowledge about what you do. But I think when I went to Kronos in the early 90s, I was employed there as the corporate operations manager. I'd already got the operational background. I understood what container leasing was all about. When I was there, I learned much more about the lease agreements and the manufacturing process, and also what it's like to be in a corporate office when you've got 15 area offices that, you know, you're constantly communicating with, traveling to. But at that point, I also got very heavily involved in the systems side. We were putting in a new system, and there needed to be an interface between the people running the business and the front line and the IT guys who were, you know, real sort of very intelligent people that didn't really grasp the business as much. I was that interface. So that also exposed me to a lot about the, not just the operational aspects of the business, but also the financial side of it as well, because it was all one system. And in the late 90s, a few of us left Kronos and we started this company called Unitas that I was at until 2004. And the great thing about that experience was we started something from scratch. You know, we started from a blank sheet of paper. We knew we had the business and the finance to do what we wanted to do, but we had to build this company. And for me, that was probably one of the best exposures because I was under a lot of pressure. But that gave me the depth of knowledge that I've got now and the ability to do what I do. So yeah, to answer the question with what I do at Blue Sky, it's a bit of everything. It's interesting, you know, what is an executive director, but I'm not one or the other. The only thing that I really don't spend a huge amount of time on, interestingly, is the sales, because we've got Jeff Mornard, who's really sort of running that side of the business and does such a good job of it that he doesn't need any interaction from me on that. So I look after maybe much more the operational and IT and that side of the business. But together we are a team that run Blue Sky.
Yeah, and it's a great team. I've been fortunate enough to obviously spend time with most everyone there, most of you guys in person, and it's top notch. I'm a big fan. Yeah, you know that.
That's great. That's great that you say that, because we do get some compliments. People do like us, and you know, we're taking this very seriously. We have to, but we work very hard, but we work to live. We don't necessarily live to work, if you know what I mean. So
yep, you know, no doubt. One of the more fun groups there is too. Yeah, I don't think anyone can doubt the fun factor hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we do have a bit of a reputation. We have to watch that very, very carefully.
So we won't do any of those stories on this episode.
That's not the channel for that, Kevin.
No doubt. So one of my favorite things to speak with you about is always factory production, forecasting, kind of watching that data, and you're gracious enough to always have those conversations with me, and I appreciate it. Where do you kind of see that at the moment and for the fourth quarter of this year, if you have an opinion on it?
Well, you know, if you'd have asked me that question probably 2 months ago, I would have given you a different answer to the one I'm giving you now. And I think part of the problem that we've had in our sector for a long time is forecasting. Because no 2 years have been the same for quite a long time, and container pricing has been volatile over the last decade. But it's been very interesting to see how on the manufacturing side, they've worked out a way to keep some control over the capacity of what they're doing. And, you know, that obviously helps they're not throttling the supply, but it obviously helps to keep the pricing sensible for them, which is also sensible for any asset manager as well. You know, low container prices are good for some people. And we think that, you know, this year in terms of production volume, we wouldn't want to put a figure on it, but looking at the space that's available for manufacturing at the moment, they're very well booked out. And so demand has increased. Whether it's going to be a 2 or 3 million TEU year, nobody knows. I can't imagine it being high at all, not this year. Right. And I think there's quite a lot of speculation about next year as well, because when people talk about massive economical factors like we're seeing at the moment with the pandemic, you do quite often get that spike followed by that U-shaped recovery. And so it's pretty difficult to tell where we'll be. All we do know is that, unless Dr. Spock and his team with transporting comes into play, containers are going to be out there for a long time. So I don't know. The one thing that's, I mean, I'm no economist, but the one thing that is a massive variable out there is how each of these economies are going to recover from this. Because in the UK, the way the pandemic has been dealt with, the government have been very generous in supporting both business and individuals. The moment that stops, we're already expecting in the next month or two to see a wave of redundancies. So, of course, that then lends itself to recession. And so without putting a downer on it, we're quite open-minded or apprehensive is probably a better word about what the next year is going to bring. But I think that if we're talking just about 2020, I think by the time we get to the end of 2020, we're all going to be saying, wow, that was a much better year than we thought it was going to be when it started.
Right.
That's probably the best I can give you. And I'll probably put this back in a year and say, what was I talking about?
No, that was a perfect summary. I mean, I think that hits all the different aspects to it, but we can leave all the actual economic modeling to people that do that all day. And even they may not be right. There's still a degree of uncertainty to all that.
Yeah. But I mean, like we say, goods need transporting around the world, and they go in containers. That's when I'm going back to what I was saying to you before, when you have that conversation with your kids or their friends or family, and they say, what do you do? Containers, and they I need to go to the bathroom. Hang on a minute. When you go to that bathroom, everything you see in there has probably been in a container at some point. Just bear that in mind. Off you go.
Now go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. Well, unfortunately, we're coming near the end of our window together, but I really greatly appreciate you doing this, and obviously I appreciate the friendship and you just always being an ally for us. So thank you.
No, likewise, Kevin. We're very much about partnerships with what we do at Blue Sky. We need each other at various times, and that's great. That works for us really well too. So we appreciate your support as well. And custom.
Yeah, thank you, my friend.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to you, and thanks for joining Container Happy Hour.
Bye to me. Cheers.